This is Castle Drogo, which is often considered to be the last castle that's ever been built in England. It's built in Dartmoor in Devon, and it was built between 1911 and 1932. So the castle was commissioned by Julius Drew, who was a young business tycoon who made a lot of money early in life, and he really wanted to live in a castle with all of its grandeur. So he set about designing it. It was actually designed by one of the most sought after British architects in the first half of the 20th century, called Edwin Lutyens. And unfortunately, there were some serious issues with the structure that led to this castle to leak. The roof of the castle was made with asphalt, which was a relatively new material at the time, and its properties with regards to construction were pretty poorly understood. As a result, the castle suffered from massive leaks almost as soon as it was finished. Eventually, the castle was in serious danger of fully collapsing into major ruin, and it was handed over to the National Trust, who spent £15.5 million working on the roof and bringing this castle back to its glory. I really love these drinking horns on the table, and there's some interesting things on this table. So you'll see some electric candlesticks, which were actually one of Julius Drew's loves, that he loved collecting modern gadgets of the time. And a lot of these glasses on the table are Venetian, and they were bought during his and Frances, his wife's, honeymoon. In the drawing room, you will see an old writing desk that not only belonged to Francis Drew, but before that, it belonged to King Louis Philippe I of France. We can tell this because it has a royal fleur-de-lis stamp on it, meaning that it was part of the royal household. There's also a pair of portraits of Francis and Drew that were hung next to one another. These were painted in 1902 by the Scottish artist Charles Martin Hardy. Here's a little look at what the maids' quarters would have looked like. So there are actually still some members of the Drew family that live in the castle today. They have a small flat upstairs. The castle itself was finished in 1930, and it was only a year before Julius died. However, he had been able to live in the house since around 1925. Drew had made his money being a young business tycoon and owning a chain of stores called the Home and Colonial Stores, which sold teas selected in India by Drew, alongside other groceries. He began to build the castle when he was 54 years old, and the budget for the castle was £50,000 at the time, and a further £10,000 for the gardens. The first stone was laid on the 4th of April 1911, which was Drew's 55th birthday. So here you can have a little look around the kitchen. Apparently the family owned 374 copper jelly molds, so they obviously love jelly. They also must have loved ice cream, having not only an ice cream maker, but this whole room dedicated to ice cream. One of the really fascinating things about this castle was the hydroelectric power. So basically they used the force of the Teign Gorge to power the castle. Whilst Castle Drogo was being built, Julius Drew wrote to Gilbert Gykes and co. to inquire whether it was possible to use the energy from the River Teign. They were a well-established engineering company at the time, specialising in hydroelectricity generation. By 1929, they had installed the turbines and they were producing electricity that supplied the castle. Unfortunately, over time it did fall into disrepair, but the National Trust is aiming to produce 50% of their energy from renewable sources by 2020. So in this bid, they actually reinstated the hydroelectric infrastructure, and it's up and working as it was before. So this bathroom actually had one of the 7 light bulbs that Julius bought for this property. So at this time it was actually quite rare to have flushing toilets, and this was one of the earlier flushing toilets. This is a little bit of a sad room. It's called the Memorial Room, and it was set up by Francis Drew when their oldest son Adrian Drew was killed fighting in the First World War in 1917. This room is almost a shrine to him and displays many of his personal possessions, school photos, college trophies, alongside a portrait of him in his military uniform. Drew's daughter actually recalled that after her brother's death, the joy of life went out as far as her father was concerned, and that he really was much of an invalid afterwards. After Julius's death, the castle was actually used for a short while as a house for babies that were made homeless during the bombings in London. They even put these binoculars here for you so you can take a look at the absolutely stunning views around the castle. Here is a lift that they had installed. Here's a little setup they have for children to start getting into their early architectural side. So this is the chapel, which was actually the last part of the castle to be built, with construction finishing in 1930. It's a good place to stop and reflect. It holds a model replica of the Thiepval Memorial designed by Lutyens to commemorate British and South African soldiers that were lost in the Battle of Somme in 1916. So in my opinion, the absolute best part about Castle Drogo is the gardens. They are absolutely stunning and they go up on multiple levels. They are just so full of butterflies, and you can actually go and take a coffee and drink it in the garden if you get a takeaway. The National Trust always has a shop, but I do really like the ones that have the garden stuff, probably just because I'm very interested in that myself. And I got myself one of these beautiful iron hanging wind chimes for my balcony, and a little frog that crawls on a pot. I really wanted one of these bird baths, but because I have a cat, I just don't think it's the right thing to do.